What's up guys, Bobgar here, and I realized before the first match I did with this deck, I didn't actually go over the deck at all, so I want to do a real quick, simple deck tech, not a lot in here, but I wanted to at least talk about how the deck plays, the idea of the deck. And so the idea of the deck is you have these fuse cards. Beck Call. Beck is whenever a creature enters the battlefield this turn, you may draw a card, and Call is create 4/1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. And so these are fuse cards, so you can pay them for their fuse cost, which is normally 8 mana, and get both effects at once. So in this case, you would put 4/1/1 flyers on the battlefield and draw 4 cards, which is pretty powerful. And for this other one, it's again 8 mana, breaking and entering. Breaking is put the top 8 cards of target player's library into their graveyard. Entering is put a creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste until end of turn. Again, both of these are pretty powerful effects, and if you can fuse them for 8 mana, you're in pretty good shape. And then when these are in your hand, it's a little weird. They count as having 2 mana, 6 mana, and 8 mana all at once, because it counts as being 3 different cards, each one being cast individually or them being cast together. The reason that's important is we get to cards like Brain in a Jar, Seram's Expertise, and Kari's Expertise. So let's read those real quick. Brain in the Jar reads, pay 1 mana and tap. Put a charge counter on Brain in the Jar. You may cast an instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in the Jar from your hand without paying its mana cost. So here's the trick. This card has converted mana cost too. You're playing it from your hand, which means you can use the fuse ability. That's what it says. You can use fuses from your hand. And this says you can play that card without paying its mana cost. So you can play this card as fuse without paying its mana cost, because it doesn't say the mana cost has to be 2. It just says you can play a card with converted mana cost less than 2, which this does have, and you can play it without paying its mana cost, even if its mana cost is 8. It doesn't matter. That's not what Brain in the Jar talks about. So it's a really weird trick that has to do with the specific rules on all of the cards. And obviously the same works for breaking and entering, so that's how Brain in the Jar abuses this. It also has a secondary ability, pay 3, tap. You can remove counters from it and scry. Equal to the number of counters you remove. Sram's Expertise and Kari's Expertise have similar abilities. I'm going to start with the secondary text because that's what's important to the combo. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So again, they have converted mana cost 3 or less. You can pay them without paying their mana cost, even if this only targets the card, and the mana cost, it doesn't matter if when that part is resolving, if the mana cost is 8, it only matters for targeting if it's less than 2, or less than 3 in this case. This one's less than 2. So these are still targetable by it, and you can play them without paying their mana cost, even if you're doing fuse. Again, it's from their hand, so you're allowed to use fuse, so you can do it for 8. This rule is changing very, very soon. I bought the deck right before they announced that the rule was changing, so that this broken thing wouldn't happen. So I'm getting in some last games with it before they patched that rule, basically. This one's also a pretty useful card on its own. It just puts out 3/1/1 creatures, which is pretty nice for a bunch of reasons. Stabilizes you against a lot of matchups. I run Polymorph in the sideboard, which I'll talk about later. You can Polymorph one of those tokens and also hit one of your big threats. Kari's Expertise is kind of neat too. You get to gain control of an opponent's creature or vehicle, which not many vehicles in Modern, but it's nice when it is. You need to untap them and use them. Then we get to our creature combo. So Beck Call just gets us 1/1s and cards, which is very, very good for us, but not game breaking really. It helps us find more combo pieces. Occasionally you can just swing in the air with 1/1s and win. The one that's game breaking is breaking and entering, and it's game breaking because of the combination of the two. You get to put 8 cards in your graveyard. Hopefully you flip one of these. These are basically the most powerful cards to reanimate in Modern. Emrakul, the Aeons, Torn, and Griselbrand. Hopefully you flip one of those. You hit the entering side of it. You get to put one into play with haste. And so if you get Griselbrand, which is kind of the weaker of the two, you get a 7/7 flying lifelink. You get to swing in, gain 7 life back immediately, and then you can pay 7 to draw more cards, which means you can probably combo again on your next turn. You mean you can draw just 7 cards, you draw 14. If they try to remove it, you can draw cards in response to make sure you have the ability to combo on the next turn. So this is good, but not great. The one that's really good is Emrakul, the Aeons, Torn. So this is a 15/15 flying protection from colored spells, Annihilator 6. And what Annihilator 6 does is when it attacks, whoever it attacks has to sacrifice that many permanents. So when you attack your opponent, they have to immediately sack 6 permanents. Permanents are lands, creatures, things like that. Its cast trigger is never really relevant to this, but if you cast him, you take an extra turn, and he can't be countered. Again, not really relevant to this. It is true, the last part, when he goes to the graveyard, you have to shuffle him into your library, but because this is all on one card, it's happening before this resolves on the stack. So you get to put him into play before he gets shuffled back in, before he shuffles your library back in, basically. We're not running it, but you can also, if you have any instant speed reanimate, like Goryo's Vengeance, you can also reanimate him with that as soon as he hits the graveyard. So that's kind of our combo. Those are our 28 combo pieces. So about half the deck is our combo. We have the Breaking and Entering creature combo. We have the Beck call, draw a bunch of cards, get a bunch of tokens combo, and then we have our 12 enablers for that combo: Brain in the Jar, Sram's Expertise, and Kari's Expertise. But and these aren't terrible on their own. Brain in the Jar is not great, but it can hit some one drop spells for us, a lot of cast them for free while we're doing other things. It gets us some scries, and especially Sram's Expertise. Putting 1/1s on the field is actually pretty useful in Modern. Just stop Tarmogoyfs and Death Shadows as long as they don't have trample spells and things like that. And stealing their creatures can also be pretty good. And then we get into our 1-drops. Faithless Looting and Serum Visions are really to help us find our pieces. And then Path to Exile is just to get rid of our opponent's threats to make sure we live long enough to combo off. And that's really all there is to it. For those who don't know, Path to Exile, Exile is a creature. Faithless Looting, draw 2, discard 2. Good way to get Emrakuls out of our hand if they're all stuck in hand, or put a Griselbrand in the graveyard. One of the nice things about putting a Griselbrand in the graveyard is then if we can hit Breaking Entering, we're guaranteed to hit at least one creature with it. I mean, usually you'd rather hit Emrakul, but if you can get a Griselbrand in the graveyard, you at least guarantee that you hit something, because otherwise there is some chance that flipping 8 cards whiffs when you only have 8 targets in the deck. And then Serum Visions, a little bit like Faithless Looting, you draw a card and then you get to scry 2, so you get to set up the next couple cards you get to draw. This can be really nice for setting up drawing the next piece of your combo, and one of the really nice things about it is it sets up drawing the next piece of your combo in a way where they can't immediately grab it with hand disruption. Hand disruption is one of the things that this deck definitely fears because it is such a combo-oriented deck. And I run 1 Raise the Alarm in the main board. This is just, again, to have something. It's a little bit like Path to Exile. I just want something to stabilize early game, put out some tokens. It's more important post board if you want to put in the Polymorphs. And then the land. So this is not the optimal land base for this deck. I just ran the ones I had. Certainly you want fetches, but what I'm running are fast lands. I have Seachrome Coast and Inspiring Vantage, which are fast lands in the correct color. Very good. Basically, they come in untapped and tap for either color of mana as long as you don't control more than 3 lands. And mostly we don't care about having more than 3 lands, except for Sram's Expertise. So hopefully our 4th land is not one of these. I put in 4 Temple of Triumphs. This is a really, really cheap, good budget land. Always comes into play tapped, but it gives you a scry. And scrying, similar to what I said about Serum Visions, is very nice for setting up your combo in a deck like this and pushing stuff that you don't want away. And then 2 shocks, just because I had them. Shocks are pretty nice. You don't really want to take damage early because a lot of times you'll be trying to stabilize against faster decks, but taking a little bit is fine if necessary. And if you don't have a use for the lands, they can come into play untapped anyway. So 1 Hallowed Fountain, 1 Sacred Foundry, and then a bunch of basics. I'm running a lot more red than I am any other color. This is because I want turn 3 cards of Expertise, and because all of my dual lands are white. Literally every card in this giant dual land stack is white, so we end up with 14 white sources, 14 red sources. The deck is mostly white and red, just kind of splashing blue for Serum Visions, and then a few things in the sideboard. We have some counter spells to help us force through our combo, and Polymorph, and so I guess let's talk about the sideboard a little bit here. An extra Path to Exile if we need it. Timely Reinforcements helps us stabilize against aggro. Raise the Alarm, mostly, it helps us stabilize too, but mostly if we want to put in the Polymorph package. Fragmentize, get rid of annoying instants and sorceries. It only hits 4 things with converted mana cost 4 or less, but that's almost everything in the format. The big disadvantage is that it's sorcery instead of instant. 2 drops, negate, stop any non-creature spell. Swan Song, 1 mana, stop any enchantment, instant, or sorcery. So almost the same as this, except it doesn't stop planeswalkers, and it gives them a 2/2. Giving them a 2/2 is actually somewhat relevant. If you're playing against a deck with almost no creatures, you almost always want to bring this in because it'll give you a target for your Kari's Expertise, and you do have some targets yourselves like Raise the Alarm and Timely Reinforcements, so I mean you might put those in against a low creature deck anyway, but Swan Song is also a way to force your opponent to put a creature on the battlefield so you have a target for it. Then 2 Ghost Quarters against things like Tron, just to disrupt their mana base, and 2 Polymorphs. Polymorphs are basically, they let you fetch out at random one of either Emrakul or Griselbrand by sacrificing one of your tokens, because we're not running any creatures, and it's very powerful. It's pretty easy to disrupt. They can kill the creature you're targeting with it in response, but this comes in post board a lot of times just because you know they're going to have graveyard hate, and you can certainly just win with tokens with Sram's expertise and your other token stuff and Beck call, but a lot of times you'll want some other way to interact. Admittedly, the whole deck pretty much except for the token plan gets shut down by Grafdigger's Cage, but Grafdigger's Cage isn't that common. You see a lot of things like Rest in Peace, and Rest in Peace totally shuts down the reanimate side of the combo, but doesn't shut down Polymorph. So if you suspect it, a lot of times it makes sense to go down, you know, maybe 1 or 2 breaking and entering, maybe 1 or 2 expertise or something, and then go up the Polymorphs so that you can cheat things into play that way and get an Emrakul into play that way. So it's just kind of a not nearly as strong, but a good post-board plan just because they know what you're doing after the first game, and there's lots of ways to fight against it. So that's the deck. I've seen people run it in a lot of different colors. I like running it this way just because I think it has a better chance of winning fair occasionally. I like the blue splash. I originally was just running it pure red-white, which had some advantages too, but I decided I like the blue splash for Polymorph and for Serum Visions to help us draw our combo. Yeah, I'll play some games of it for you and you can see what it's like. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon. Hey guys, Bobgar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with content, probably not as frequently as I would like, but I will be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Yeah, and again, as I always say, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.